Welcome to the What's Haunting You podcast, where we work on healing that which haunts us. With me, Micah. Happy Valentine's Day. All right, I want to talk about the history of Valentine's Day a little bit and how it came to be and how it ties into the other episodes I'm doing this month on the different languages, not languages. I'm not talking about love languages. I'm talking about the words for love that psychology often uses that originate in Greek. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going to say that Valentine's Day is my favorite holiday ever. I kind of like the food holidays and the cold staying inside holidays the best. Um, Although trips with my honey are fun. But um, I do have love as a favorite topic. I do like talking about love and relationships a lot because it's been my biggest struggle. So, and I came a long way. I also feel, though, that it can be triggering for some people, Valentine's Day. But a lot of American holidays can, you know. The intention I have every Valentine's Day season is always the same for the past few years. It's to see all the opportunity there is in this holiday to reframe any cynicism that we might have towards love, because it's towards what we don't have, which would be lack of mentality mind, or what has hurt us the most in the past. And I was hurt badly in the past, but I always found a way to focus on other loves I had, like friends that were there and supported me through difficult times, or a job with supportive coworkers. There was always something that I could look to and celebrate love in that regard. Another reason I do the podcast on the different types of love. But when we do that, when we focus on the gratitude aspect, gratitude does a lot for our healing and our brain. But when we're focusing on all the different forms of love that are active and good for us and others, instead of the forms of love we aren't currently feeling or experiencing, we have a healthier and happier perspective. It's empowering for us, it can heal us. That's why I'm focusing on different loves in my podcast right now. Um, when we do that, when we're focusing on the different forms, we're able to experience healthier relationships. We become more resilient. We can improve and increase our own self awareness, including our emotional self awareness. We get to know ourselves better. Let's talk about, though, how Valentine's Day got started in this mini episode. Historians are not in complete agreement around it. They tend to focus on three main components, though, that kind of, I think, coalesced and evolved and helped create Valentine's Day what it is today. Lupercalia is one thing, St. Valentine is the second person, and an ancient, famous at the time poem that was called Parliament of Fowls by Geoffrey Chaucer. Those three things. That poem references St. Valentine's Day being the start of mating season for the birds, and it was released around February 14th. I believe so. Correct me if I'm wrong. So let's start with the first one, Lupercalia. There's a lot of information online about Lupercalia if you want to dive deep, so look it up, because I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty, gory details. For these purposes, we're focusing on the happy, lovely things, but I will touch on everything. It was an ancient Roman fertility festival that was held on February 15th. The festival included animal sacrifices overseen by Roman priests called Luperci. I believe I'm saying that right, I hope. And this festival was the Luperci's primary duty. Different groups at that time of Roman priests had various roles. And they would be named according to those roles, like their job description. Like, I'm an optician in real life, not just a podcaster. So they weren't just priests, but they were Luperci if they were responsible for this festival. The origins of the festival remain even more obscure because they go back so far and historical records are not complete around that. But scholars have thought that the name is likely derived from the word lupus, which is wolf in Latin. There is also a suggestion of this festival being tied to an ancient god named Lupercus, who protected herds from wolves, as well as the goddess Lupa, which translates to she-wolf, because she nursed Romulus and Remus when they were infants. Uh, they were the legendary founders of Rome, and there is a famous statue about this. And it wasn't an exact wolf that she transformed herself in to, if you see the sculpture, and I'm drawing a blank as to what it is, but I will post at least a link, if not the picture, in my Substack when I post this video so you can see what it looks like. It's very interesting history I studied in art history, but it's not fresh. um, anyway, it's a cool picture to see though, and the history is interesting. But Luperci, the literally translates to wolf priests, and these wolf priests, Luperci, Roman priests, were also believed to be priests for and of Faunus, which was a goat-legged, horned Roman god and oracle of the forests, fields, and plains. And that god, Faunus's primary role was to protect livestock and promote agricultural fertility. He was also said to be associated with strange occurrences and happenings and sounds when you're in the woods. The Lupercalia ritual was bloody, to say the least. It focused on fertility, and it was held in February because February was believed to not only be a month to celebrate or to have rituals to bring fertility, um, because they were celebrating the promise of the upcoming spring. Their intentions were strong, but the intention was also to include purification in those rituals and in the month of February. The month of February literally comes from purification, the word. In etymology online, the late 14th century, ultimately from Latin, Februarius menses means month of purification, from februare to purify, and from februa, purifications, expiatory rites. The plural form of februum means of purification, expiatory offerings. They also talk about how there's a Pi word meaning that contributed somewhat to the naming of February, which meant the smoking or the burning, thus possibly connected with fume. The sense then could be either purification by smoke or a burnt offering. So that's from Etymology Online. In about 494 to 496 AD, Pope Gelasius I declared, because he was a Christian at the time, wild pagan festival was illegal. And he replaced it with a church-sanctioned day for St. Valentine to be honored on February 14th because that's when he was martyred under Emperor Claudius, which was February 14th, 269 AD. Valentine was put to death for marrying couples and helping Christians who were being persecuted. Um, the emperor was said to have banned young men from marrying to encourage them to join the military. According to legend, the Romans first tried to kill him with stones and clubs, but failed. After that, Valentine was beheaded and hastily buried, but his followers disinterred his body to give him a Christian burial. And then after that, St. Valentine was likely a priest or bishop during his life, and although not initially associated with romantic love in his lifetime, um, his feast day, St. Valentine's Day, was the 14th. It did become associated with courtship in the Middle Ages, likely because he died for love. He is recognized now as the patron saint of lovers, people with epilepsy, and beekeepers. Fun fact. So now we'll go to the third part, which is the Parliament of Owls poem, which came out in the Middle Ages. When it came out, there began to be a rise in love letters, referred to as Valentines, addressed to one's Valentine. Now we fast forward to February 11th, 2010, when Amy Poehler's character Leslie Knope introduced the idea of Galentine's Day on Parks and Rec, and we continue to see the evolution of how love can be celebrated in February. So that's a big leap. But look, we all know that all the commercialization that happened to Valentine's Day after the Middle Ages, once people started writing Valentines, all bets were off, I'm telling you. And look, there was always some kind of this exorbitant celebration around in February for whatever reason. So it's just modernized into consumption and consumerism now as opposed to planting seeds. But if we want to be in, maybe we can come up with our own way of celebrating Valentine's Day, what we would love to plant for spring now. You know, it doesn't have to be a crazy ritual, does it? I don't know. Personally, I'm a little relieved that we don't have to obsess about our fertility through violent rituals performed by men that harm women anymore. Oh, wait. Anyway, on that note, I'd like to wrap up by stressing how nuanced everything we do, see, and are as a community, as a society, in our culture, as individuals, how different it is for each person, how it can be, how all of these factors, they start to work together and come into play to create the life that each individual person is living. And they all shape the lens to where we all see everything just a little differently than the other person. But it's all coalescing all the time. And the more we're connected and living in love, the more we can appreciate other lenses for what they are. Doesn't mean it changes who we are, but it gives us a broader perspective and it helps us see greater. And for people who want to be quote unquote godlike or divine, that sees the connection in everything. It is omnipresent and it knows all and sees all. So when we fixate too much on our own perspective, our own little world, and our own little problems, and our own little fears, we are further and further away from what God is, right? If we believe in that sort of thing, what divinity is, what the universe is. Because I'm telling you, we're little tiny specks on top of a little tiny speck in a vast universe. So maybe we should be nice to each other, is all I'm saying. Stay tuned. I already released the first half of the 4 types of love earlier this week. The second half of that series, I'll drop it probably at the last of the month, for the different words and forms of love. Remember, you can subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. I'll link my Substack in the notes so you can find all my references and further explorations of this haunting topic that is love. Please feel free to message me with ideas, suggestions, questions, or whatever you want to share at what'shauntingyou@gmail.com. You can also send text to a podcast number I got reserved strictly for receiving messages at 480-382-7596. Thank you so much to Jim Hesterman Photography for his help with audio and visual production as always. I have been your guide and host. Have a lovely Valentine's Day, lovers.